Truth, logic, action, power. It's the GreggHoush Show here on New Revolutionary Radio. From the Leonard School in Malden, Massachusetts, Gregg and company are here to bring a sense of ethics to your news. Whether it's politics, activism, or current events, we always seek to inform and never to deceive. Let's start the show.
And welcome to the GreggHoush Show, episode 31. We are
back.
We are getting there. Yes, feeling a lot better than last week. I am joined by the amazing Kayla.
I'm
Kayla
amazing
Avery
now.
here.
Well, I mean, I've always been, but
Our
you're
wonderful co-host.
finally recognized.
Finally recognized it unofficially.
I mean, I recognized a long time ago you were just a little too young.
You need to
You
stop
shouldn't
that.
have acted that way. You were a bad person.
I mean, I know I'm a bad person.
And here in the studio, we also have Mac.
The Mac Daddy! It's the Mac and Mac.
Mac and cheese.
Mac and cheese. He's Mac-tastic. He's the Mac
Macalicious.
truck.
Yeah.
He's coming your way.
Honk honk.
And that was Derek.
That's our
May
D-Dog.
not hear him again tonight.
Honk honk might be the highlight. For
His
me.
mic has been turned off.
I accepted my moment. And then
We're gonna record that and just have that be the new intro.
That's going to be the whole intro. Welcome to the GreggHoush Show. Honk, honk.
I support this, actually.
Makes sense, yeah.
It's
that
the
works.
episode title of this week, guys.
The Lego
great,
good
great.
idea. Yep.
All right,
We
everyone.
have that solved.
Yeah, it's always the hardest part.
Now you don't have to
really.
listen for like an hour to find the episode title. There you go, guys. Okay, so as per usual, there was way too much stuff this week, and we're going to pick and choose a few of these topics. I mean, the easiest one to start out with is, of course, Jeff Flake, Bob Corker, and their love affair with Trump.
Oh, they're brave, resistant leaders.
Oh, man,
Ugh.
Hey, to be fair, that Jeff Flake's speech on the Senate floor a couple days ago, where he announced his intent not to run for re-election in 2018, and then spent the remaining 24 minutes doing nothing but directly shit-talking Donald Trump, was actually a pretty damn good speech, honestly. And if it had come from a decent human being who I actually believed had any sort of, decent human sentiments or, values that they really stood for, it would have meant a lot to me.
Yeah, it was historical in its quality, in its writing, in the content. It was just
so
delivered by the wrong person.
Yeah, so whoever wrote his speech, great
yeah,
job.
yeah.
Great job.
Not getting paid enough, definitely.
I mean-
and someone should a real person should probably hire that person.
But of course, that speech was followed by votes where he voted right with what Trump wanted.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's pretty predictable. Even, really, the Republicans.
It's predictable by just his voting history. I disagree with his politics, his values, his morals, everything he stands for.
Sure,
no,
tie combo.
The only thing me and him agree on is that Trump is a real piece of shit.
But here's the thing, though.
Sorry.
They say that they think he's a piece of shit, but they're actually not doing anything to prove that they think he's a piece of shit. Like, there's a lot of things that they could be doing legislatively to control Trump, take away some of his executive power. But they haven't.
Need
but
a
they
few
haven't.
more people to come along for the ride.
This is kind of
No,
like...
but what I'm saying
There's
is
like two and a half of them
but
standing where those two are, and
They
then
need a
there's
couple
like
in the House as
then there's
well.
like that slightly smaller step down where you've got Collins and and
I'm
and
saying
then you've got all the
taking
rest of them.
small steps. Like, there's so many small things. Taking back the authority that AMUF
but that would
precision.
require the House vote as well, and getting it through the House would be a lot
What
harder.
is that
than the
decision?
Senate.
Just 'cause I don't know if
Authorization
anybody
for
else-
use of military force.
That's what we passed in 2001.
It's what we started doing
no,
instead of war
2002.
resolutions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, or
yeah.
they could implement more
Cut.
more things saying that he has to come to Congress and if he wants to act militarily, and they're not really doing that because they don't.
There's limits to what the Senate can do on its own.
Yeah.
And back to whatever that we said on the floor there, it really just rings to me just tone deaf, obviously, but also kind of like fathers that are finally, after 6 months of watching the quarterback of the high school football team, verbally berate his daughter and treat her like trash, and then 6 months after watching it, he goes out to the neighborhood, right on the front lawn, puts up the picket sign there, and tells everybody how he won't stand for this treatment, and then he goes back inside and tells his daughter that she needs to make sure she stays in a relationship with him. It just doesn't make any sense. It's
So-
the words before the
No,
behavior
I mean,
over
if
and
you-
over.
I
Yeah,
think
it's words versus action.
Well,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
if you look at what Jeff Flake actually said in the speech and also his Washington Post op-ed to very much the same effect, his statements were things not criticizing Trump's actual policies. He never really
Yeah,
said.
because they don't have a problem with
Yeah,
the policy.
exactly. He is 100% agreement in all the awful things Donald Trump wants to do. His problem is with how Donald Trump acts and conducts himself and
Yeah,
interacts with
the,
others.
the dignity and honor of the position.
This is like a
And-
strategist probably that put that together, you think? I mean, I don't know what those roles are
I
called
mean,
in DC, but
between the fact that he wrote his book a few months ago, and
Yeah,
then
he
did
went on the
this,
Trump bashing
like-
tour right before he tried to take away millions of people's health care.
the
it's
book.
probably what he's had his staff working on for a while.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny because and to me, when I heard that he was retiring, and then after Bob Corker announcing retiring, like I was excited. I'm like, good, get out of here.
Yeah.
Like I don't we didn't want you to be in that seat to begin with,
Oh.
and also it just like half these people should I hope more people like jump ship. And the only reason why they're saying like people like Flake and like Corker are like coming out against him is because they're trying to separate themselves and the party from Trump, so that like when Trump fucks up, they'll be able to say on the 2018 campaign trail, that wasn't us, that was Trump, not the party.
Yeah,
That's
and
Trump.
if you actually listen to, I don't have the quote in front of us, but one of the things he said was he was talking about how like sooner or later we'll wake up from this and like return to sanity. And he actually used the phrase "wake up" and I think sanity in that statement.
Yeah.
So he's telling us
he was-
Republican.
Yeah, he was basically just saying, "Yeah, no, we need to get the hell away from this because this is all going to blow up in our faces."
And just to like put it into the kids' terminology, he just told his fellow members of Congress to get woke.
He did.
He did.
Mm-hmm.
But not like too woke where you think black people are equal, but like woke enough to pass some tax cuts.
That being said, he did say, I mean, I think this quote is very interesting on his behalf, regardless of his awful policy stances in virtually every regard. Quote, "And what do we as United States senators have to say about it? The principles that underlie our politics, the values of our founding, are too vital to our identity and our survival to allow them to be compromised by the requirements of politics, because politics can make us silent when we should speak, and silence can equal complicity. I have children and grandchildren to answer to." And then his next thing was, "Mr. President, I won't remain complicit." Yes, he is complicit in many, many awful policies, but the fact that he is directly equating this administration with an outright threat to the existence of our nation and the values that it was founded upon, I think is actually very important, especially coming
It's
from
an
someone as
honorable
awful as him.
statement to make, but it was weird because I watched it with you.
Yeah.
Me and you saw that together, and
I actively did not choose to watch it just because I just don't like Flake, and I think like he did this already.
his
know.
statement was truly amazing, and I wish it was delivered by someone who isn't horrible. And we keep saying Flake's horrible, and we keep talking about what just a disgusting human being he happens to be. But let's really just lay this out for people, because we've got a wonderful list here that really
Just
lays
this
out.
recent stuff.
This is just recent. We just had the federal rule that banned people from doing mandatory arbitration
Not
clauses
just
with
people.
financial.
Financial.
It specifically prohibited any financial entity from making forced arbitration clauses. So like credit card companies, bank loans, Wall Street, all
What
the
these
People that
clauses-
own your student debt.
Yeah, what these clauses did was they meant you could not sue these companies.
and not just
Or anything.
For
and not
anything.
just sue. Like you waived your rights to any type of legal action, including class actions, and they did this after we found out that Equifax lost hundreds of millions of people's identities. and
Literally, the very rule that they repealed
And-
was the one that prevented Equifax from forcing binding arbitration.
And a year after, or less than a year after, we found out that Wells Fargo was stealing people's identities and opening up credit cards and opening bank accounts
And accounts, yeah.
putting people into default and getting people their lives were ruined because of Wells Fargo committing criminal acts of identity fraud.
And never mind, like all the stuff that we heard about during the financial crisis with, mortgage originators just lying to people about whether they could afford the loans and misrepresenting the nature of the loan to the people that were taking out the loan. And like all of these things involving financial companies just blatantly committing criminal acts.
All of these things that you should be able to sue for a short period you could. Now, again, thanks to people like Jeff Flake, you can't. So that's just one. He opposed disaster relief for Puerto Rico and Hurricane Harvey relief.
So he opposed disaster relief for a state one over from him and another state.
He supported the skinny repeal bill and pretty much every other Obamacare repeal bill. He voted for every Trump nominee to date. Voted to reduce cloture requirement for Supreme Court nominees from 60 votes, making it easier to get those nominees. Voted to repeal FCC rules barring ISPs from sharing data on customer activities.
Now, is that part of the right to sell people's browsing history?
Yes,
that is directly related.
He voted to make sure that they could sell your browsing histories.
This is just a little. Sorry, I have to interject for 1 second. So. I know that those are the technical terms, but we need to start being they voted to sell your browser history because people don't understand what an ISP is, like you guys do because you're the smarties.
Those are just a few of the things. I mean, we don't need to keep going.
Just
but
from after Trump took office.
Yeah, he's been voting like that his entire career. And so he is not a good person. He is not a good senator. His values are perfectly in line with Trump's when it comes to how he actually sees our politics.
There are very few issues that you can find where if you don't just look at what is a decent human stance on this, you can just predict that Jeff Flake has the exact opposite.
Yes. So while he might have given a wonderful speech, he is still a complete asshole. And then we get to Bob Corker.
Also known as Jeff Flake 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Indeed. Corker has said he wouldn't support Trump again. He wouldn't vote for him, given the opportunity. Let's hope he doesn't get that opportunity.
He wouldn't vote again. So you voted for him, dude. It's like he was 70 years old when he took office. He acted like this for 70 years, and you voted for him. You supported his nomination. You voted for him, and so for them to be acting as if it is so absurd and appalling that Trump is continuing to act the same way he's done for 70 years. It's fuck you, Corker.
How could anyone have known that Donald Trump was a giant asshole?
Yeah, there was no way to tell.
There was no history of decades of media telling everyone.
There was
and
no
even
paper trail. There was no paper
TV show
trail.
demonstrating it on a weekly basis.
So it's the fact that he was sitting there I wouldn't vote for him again. It's well, you voted for him for the first time.
In fact, you were I think the first senator to come out in favor of him.
Yeah.
Although, if I recall correctly, you did that shitty thing where you didn't endorse him, but then said you supported him and were going to vote for him, which I'm not entirely clear is different from an endorsement.
You cut your nose and shot yourself in the own foot, and you're well, if I was thinking back on it, I probably would have shot myself in the foot first, then cut my nose off. You're doing the same thing.
Corker, again, is another one of those people who right now I am enjoying his antics. I am enjoying his public speaking out against Trump. I am enjoying things like Corker saying, quote, Trump has proven himself unable to rise to the occasion, end quote.
We have a kangaroo Congress is what they're turning it into.
And so I'm enjoying watching Corker just, really make this entertaining, but at the same time, that doesn't make Corker a good person. Corker is horrible.
For the Trump supporters too, though, at least they just love their talking points, that they're just rhetoric that they can repeat, that they got from.
Oh, they're excellent. They have got that down to a T.
At the very least, at least we get some talking points from Corker, at least that we can use in those conversations, and it's one of their people, quote unquote, that belongs to that little guild of creeps.
Also, so. I think it's important because as more Republicans, currently elected Republicans, as opposed to what we've seen up till now, which has mostly just been literally everyone that was a Republican but not currently in office, except for Newt Gingrich, just shit-talking Trump. now having actual like currently elected Republicans doing it kind of encourages more to, and I think makes it easier. And it's like a necessary step in the long run towards Congress actually fighting back against Trump. And yeah, these are shitty people doing it, and they're not actually doing anything to follow up on it at the moment. But just them being out there in public using those words makes it more likely that other people in their similar position will be willing to.
Yeah, I mean, and back to like what Derek was saying about like, talking points is like, so perfect example of this is like right after, while they were voting for to repeal the forced arbitration rule, and right after it was like Mike Pence with the tie-breaking vote, and it was confirmed that they repealed the rule. I was following it on Twitter Live. I was trying to watch it on C-SPAN, but I kept falling asleep. And then the second it was confirmed that they voted to pass the repeal, I immediately switched it over to one of like I think both CNN and MSNBC, because I saw someone being like, I'm about to go talk about this, and I wanted to know more about it because I didn't see the actual vote. So I was like, who voted? Who was the two like senators, like the Republicans that voted no? And then I switched it over. Both channels were still talking about Flake's speech 6 hours ago. Guess what, dudes? There's actual news breaking, and you're not doing it, and that's what your whole like station conglomerate is supposed to be about: breaking news.
Breaking news.
I mean, is it? Because I thought it was about pretending that everything is a horse race.
Oh, I mean, to be fair, Wolf Blitzer was not actually on at that moment, so I guess it wasn't their job to break any news. It was just to talk about Flake's race and the horse.
It was about the right time, being that it had been hours for Wolf to
6
come in
hours
and
later,
call it breaking
Wolf
news.
should have come on and been like breaking news.
Right?
Jeff Flake's
just
delivering a speech now.
6 hours ago.
Yeah, like I mean, like they were still talking about like their analysis and their feelings about the speech, and it's like there's actual news breaking, guys, and it's pretty fucked up. Like it's going to affect every single person in America, and not for like a good way.
They didn't want to bother their corporate backers.
It's like I don't even know like words anymore for like what is going on, and there's some things that they're doing good. Like I know Don Lemon's finally grown a backbone, and that's really great.
Is that what crying on national TV is called?
No, that's just Don Lemon.
It is though. I appreciate that in him.
He's a feels guy, and I do like that. But he's also gotten like just sassier with like saying like cutting people off, and like if someone's telling a lie, he'll be like, that is a lie. If you're going to continue saying that lie, you will not be allowed to be on the show. So he's actually said that to people, which is good. And from what I can tell, like he's kind of the only one. Like
I've seen other people like call out falsehoods, but they don't seem to get very aggressive about it.
No, and yeah,
they're like, that isn't true, and then the person like repeats it, and they're like, but I just said that isn't. And then the person repeats it again, and they're like, "Oh, okay, moving on."
Yeah, no. Don Lemon has told people
everyone acting like Don Lemon does right now ends up off the network.
Exactly.
So when they start acting that way, I always assume it's a play on their parts to end where they want to end up, because they know they're going off the network. So what show is he attempting to set himself up for after this? Is he taking over one of the late nights? Does he have a...
Or he might be like the only one of the shows that's like has like a rising fan base because he's doing what he's doing.
Could be. I usually assume the worst out of this one, and that he knows this is going to get him fired, so he's setting himself up for the right tone for the show he has waiting for him. I
mean, if he gets another show, great. It's just so frustrating because there's so much that the Trump administration and the Senate Republicans are doing behind the scenes, like this repeal vote, like they're like,
Right, but we've got this wonderful theater out front that's,
we've got the Bob Corker Twitter fight, and we've got the Flake speech to talk about for 12 hours straight.
While in the background, they're voting on horrible things.
And then Betsy DeVos gets rid of 72 guidelines to protect students with disabilities, not reading a single one of them, and none of them have been talking about that.
No, we can totally have CNN or MSNBC or whoever talk about those issues. They'll just bring on someone from an organization full of professional liars who will blatantly lie to everyone's face, not get called out on any of it, and be treated as
they'll bring
equally
like Sarah Huckabee Sanders or like Kellyanne to like be
someone
like
from the Cato Institute or some other organization of just outright liars.
or like Sean Spencer
Well,
will
at
like
least
come
CNN
out of the grave.
doesn't bring on like the Heartland Institute. I mean, at least
They do sometimes.
there's a line there. I think
And,
there's a couple they don't.
They actually bring in people from the Heartland Institute, just not usually as representatives of the Heartland Institute.
Correct.
Yeah. No, it's just it's insane. I don't like. I mean, yeah, the Kangaroo Congress part of it is kind of funny, especially when you see it play out on Twitter. But it doesn't stay on Twitter, and that's what's so frustrating. And Twitter has become all the headline news talking points. So it's like unless like, Bob.
And now we know that we're going to get years more of it because this could be their first profitable year.
Yeah.
So they might survive, which means years more of this.
I mean, as long as
this is
they know
just
how to live,
encouraging them.
I guess we know they will survive.
Indeed.
You started that one.
Yeah. That's good stuff there. So everyone can keep paying attention to the theater, but I really hope everyone actually looks behind the curtain and sees the things they're actually voting on.
Like, holy shit, please.
Because, we've got the budget that just passed the House that's going to go over to the Senate. We've got the tax cuts for the wealthy coming up.
And it's if you guys think that like Bob Corker or Jeff Flake are going to like drive us home to like, it's like they're no.
Don't even lie to yourself.
One of
like
my
that.
favorite things I've seen online this week was actually a tweet, and it was in response to Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She had responded to a reporter in one of her press conferences saying that the tax plan will give everyone in America on average $4,000 more, so, the average American. And this person responded with a wonderful breakdown that actually explains it to you in true terms.
Like in math,
Yeah. So here's what he had to say to her in response to that wonderful average American getting $4,000. And that is this. If I have 10 apples and 10 people, and I give all 10 apples to one person, the average person has 1 apple. Why are 9 people really angry with me?
Also, there was another one. I liked that one.
I love that one.
That was a fantastic one. But
if you don't get it after hearing that one, I don't think you're ever going to get it.
I did like was the other was, but there was someone that was trying to explain like, okay, well, no, you're reducing the actual like tax liability of a corporation by that much per worker. But if you think you're going to like go to your bosses, wherever you work, go to your boss and like ask them, if the company's tax liability gets reduced by $4,000 per employee next year, how much of that is coming to me? And if your boss tells you that that number is greater than 0, your boss is probably lying to you.
Yeah.
And also $4,000, like, what's that? That's what? One person's probably mortgage payment.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't help.
Yeah, and then she also, someone also like quoted or said something to her too, and she then responded back with, "I wouldn't trust the Washington Post as your news source," and then an hour later, quoted a tweet from the Washington Post about the Dossier scandal.
I wouldn't trust Sarah Huckabee Sanders for my news source, so that seems fitting.
Yeah, and then but she quoted a Washington Post tweet, and then was like, "Oh my God, scandal!" It's like, wait a minute. You're trusting Washington Post that an hour ago you said on national television, do not trust.
Yeah, that's the career she's building for herself. Professional bad liar. So that, of course, brings up the wonderful Trump-Russia dossier and the deflection going on right now.
Yeah, there's been a lot of fun news this week because it's just been bullshit, pure and simple.
I have to say this. Look, if you're hearing about the fact that the Clinton campaign and the DNC might have bankrolled this research effort now, well, you weren't paying attention a year ago when we actually learned that. And 2, if you think it matters who paid for the thing, please remove yourself from the gene pool. I'm sorry, but who paid for it is totally irrelevant. The thing that's relevant is whether its contents are true or not. If someone committed treason but you found out thanks to Hillary Clinton. That does not change the fact that someone committed treason. It does not matter who paid for this. And if you're dumb enough to buy, again, all of this theater where they're trying to get you to pay attention to the fact that, oh, but they paid for it, so let's not look at it, then you're an idiot.
Oh, my favorite is the attempt to draw a false equivalency between, well, see, this opposition research firm hired by the Democrats hired a foreign national, which is perfectly legal.
They actually weren't hired.
They hired a law firm that
No,
hired.
they
the
were
opposition
already
research firm
they were,
hired.
and they were already hired. They were
But
hired.
they hadn't hired Christopher Steele at that point.
No, but the firm was hired originally by a Republican donor, an anonymous Republican donor. So it was already set up and funded. Like, so it was already
it was already ongoing.
It was already hired, and then just switched. Like,
but regardless,
it's like, you know, like when you're going to your mom's house for Christmas and not your dad's this year. They're both your parents.
But regardless, the idea is that hiring this guy who happened to be from the UK is supposedly, according to some people, indicative of criminal activity or like equivalence to the Veselnitskaya Trump Jr. meeting that we've talked about a bunch. And it's just ridiculous. None of the, like, even if their entire story narrative, which is absolutely preposterous, was true, none of their allegations imply any criminal wrongdoing. It's not illegal to hire someone who's a foreigner to do some sort of work on behalf of a campaign. That is perfectly legal. The illegality comes in, well, there's some constraints on what they're allowed to do for campaigns, but it has to do with management and like strategic decisions is what they're specifically prohibited from. But the thing that's illegal and what's relevant to the Veselnitskaya case is that it was a contribution. It wasn't someone being hired by the campaign. It was someone contributing something voluntarily and not without any compensation. That is where the problem is, because
that's not legal.
Yeah, that isn't. There's a implied transaction, but there's no obvious transactional relationship. So you're left with the question: well, what kind of influence are they getting in return? That's why it's illegal.
And it's also the idea that she was, privately working for the actual Russian government, which, makes it even worse and could make it even more criminal.
Right. But the fundamental thing that made the meeting initially on its face just outright illegal is the thing they're trying to compare. And there's no comparison to be made there. It's just stupid. And then you add that on top of that, the fact that it was the behest of the Russian government, and just light years of difference.
Yeah, because it's like, first of all, okay, the firm that was the opposition research firm, which is like, that is their job, is an American job, a company.
Yes.
So it is an American firm that is like the whole point of it is to do opposition research for campaigns. It was like they were hired by like a Republican donor, and then they dropped them, or like, didn't, like, once it was Trump was going to shore up the nomination. That's when, of course, you've already got the DNC going, well, Hillary's going to shore up her nomination. And then the Clinton campaign, knowing this, because they have the numbers, they see the votes in the primaries, well, then they go, well, we're going to need that opposition research. So instead of just not finishing it, we'll just fund the rest of it. And so you can finish doing your work that you were hired for.
Now, it's funny because related to that is another point here, because the Campaign Legal Center, a nonprofit watchdog, filed an FEC complaint against the Clinton campaign because in their FEC filings, they listed the expenditure that ended up going to Fusion GPS and Christopher Steele and such like as legal services or legal and compliance consulting. But in fact, what happened was there was a firm, Perkins Coie, that represented both the Clinton campaign and the DNC. There was a lawyer who was working for them on that case, Mark Alias, who is the guy that actually retained Fusion GPS's service. And the firm never informed the DNC or the Clinton campaign that they had hired Fusion GPS. This is just one of the things the lawyers do for them. And that lawyer, it turned out, never even knew specifically that he had commissioned the Steele dossier until after the fact. So there was no way for it to actually end up in their filings, although I do think that, the importance of campaign transparency should tell us that this is a real problem, that, the way that law firms provide these services to candidates means that these things aren't being properly transparent, and that is bad. It's not. It is not true.
Everything to do with campaign financing is needs to be reassessed.
Right.
Like there's not enough transparency.
We have right here just an example coming to light of one of those cases, and it's not even in the same league as all of the stuff that it's being compared to or anything, but it is a real problem. Maybe not a super serious one in this case, perhaps, but that does have real implications for transparency.
It's funny too, because it's if anyone who has a serious problem about this when it comes to the Hillary and the DNC campaign, it's you're telling me that you are 120,000% honest when doing your taxes. You're not trying to write off a few extra things here. You know what I mean? It's kind of along the same lines by putting this under a legal service as a law firm. It's yeah, that's technically true. That is, sure, maybe it should be a little bit more obvious or transparent of what that service is, but if the law firm is paying for something, they're paying for a legal service. Is it the most honest? No. But just I worked, this many hours and took away this much pay as a server. And, when half of it, you don't claim because you get paid in cash.
Yeah, but on the other hand, maybe it's just me, but I have a little bit higher standards for political parties and my server at Waffle House.
That's what I'm saying. But it's kind of the same gray area. It should, but it can't in this.
I think there's the implications of it being a matter of national importance. It changes the situation a bit, but. Yeah, no, there's definitely a gray area there, especially given what we know about this particular instance, where it's not it was the campaign's fault per se.
Yeah.
It's just the structure of the way these things are already done.
That's what I'm saying. The problem is the structure, not the act.
I do think that, these should be investigated, and if someone did something wrong, they should face the appropriate penalty, which I believe is generally pretty small, but someone might theoretically go to jail over it.
I don't think anyone's gonna go to jail because
I don't think so. But theoretically, I guess someone maybe
but
could.
It would be the firm.
Yeah, it would probably be Mark Alias, the lawyer in question, who is responsible.
Or he would pay the fine, and then the firm would get in trouble because they did the hiring of a non-American citizen. Or then again, I don't know much about Christopher Steele, so maybe he's got a dual passport.
I'm pretty sure he's actually not an American citizen.
Maybe the FBI gave him one. I don't know. That's what, you know what I mean? Because the FBI also hired him.
But it also doesn't matter if he was an American. It literally has nothing to do with anything. The question is only about whether the money that went to him was correctly reported as going to opposition research or whether it was listed as going to legal services. He could have, he could have been literal anyone. It could have been a 10-year-old kid here in Boston getting that money. It wouldn't have, legally, that's the same thing.
The campaign finance laws do say you cannot, you can't, benefit from a foreign agent or entity.
That's contributions, though. It doesn't have anything to do with if you hire someone.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all about the donations.
Yeah.
They also say in kind, too.
Yeah, in-kind contributions are a specific class of contribution, and they include things like
work,
if
product of work,
certain types of work. Actually, you can volunteer for a campaign without it being classified as a contribution in that sense. If you're only doing things like knocking on doors, stuff like that, you can actually do some of that, and even actually some certain things even foreign nationals are allowed to do, but some of these things aren't considered contributions. What would be a contribution if you're providing work to someone for a campaign is if it was a service that would normally be compensated and you accepted less or no money for it.
Gotcha.
In this case, the guy was paid his normal fee, so there's no problem legally.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah. So again, this kind of wraps right back around to how I opened this. If you believe that
I also
whoever paid for this is relevant, then please again remove yourself from the gene pool.
And
However you want to. I really don't care
Up
your
to you.
method.
It's also funny too because this is like breaking, and I'm using air quotes properly, because the first reporting of the DNC's and like the Clinton campaign's like financial involvement was reported almost to the day last year by Mother Jones.
October
Who were
2016.
the people that
31st, October 31st, 2016.
who were the first people to report on the dossier in the first place.
Yes, and so it's like I feel bad for the poor like the reporter who wrote for the October 2016 article for Mother Jones, because it's like everyone's citing WAPO, like, oh my
This
god,
guy's like, boy, I broke that story a year ago, you assholes.
And Washington Post, like they had like the picture for like their graphic for the article was like a like a paper file, and it was like exclusive, and it's like by exclusive you mean a year old.
It's exclusive because no one else is reporting on this anymore.
Yeah, it's like we've all forgotten it was already out, and like the Fox News is like foaming at the mouth with it. But like,
not just Fox
oh
News,
my god,
of course.
they are coming like just reading the headlines,
Oh, yeah.
like over and over and over again. Like like Tucker Carlson is just like exclusive, like it's just jizzing himself.
And the Washington Times, the Washington Examiner, Breitbart, the Federalist, all the usual shitholes.
I know, and they're all eating this up.
The Daily
like,
Caller?
like
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
add them in.
yeah, like all of these those Nazi sites are like eating this up, and it's like, you guys know this is the fake news media, right?
Also,
The actual
you're
fake
getting
news.
incredibly excited over a complete non-story that we've known about for a long time.
Yeah, for at least a year.
So at this point, I mean, I think we have a pretty good understanding of that. I think the audience probably does now too, a little more about how the campaign finance stuff there works with what you can and can't pay for, in regard to foreign nationals, and whether they are working for their government or themselves. But
I mean, unless you're Donald Trump Jr., then you have no fucking idea that you just incriminated yourself on Twitter.
yeah, none whatsoever.
What? I don't understand. Like, I just wanted some files from a Russian. Like, what's the
Where's
big deal?
the problem with that?
What's the big deal? She didn't even bring up. So like, I don't understand what your problem is. Like, I walked away with no files. I asked for files, got no files. What's the problem?
Never mind one of the attendees of the meeting saying that she didn't leave a folder of stuff with
A
them.
briefcase full of files. We were told.
So yeah, there we go. Again, please stop paying attention to that one.
Oh, and then there was the thing about the Podesta group as well, which of course turned out to actually be about Paul Manafort once again.
As
and his
per
activities
usual.
in
Well,
Ukraine.
that's because it had something to do with the Ukraine
Right.
under the puppet government.
Yes.
And in relation to America, the only connection you have there is Paul Manafort basically taking all of Putin's money to do all the dirty work.
And being, I believe, the person that actually brought in the Podesta group for the campaign.
Was Paul?
He was the head of the PR effort that brought them in, but I think he actually was the person.
The ECMU,
Yes.
the European Center, what is it? A European Center
Modern
for Modern
Ukraine.
Ukraine. Yeah,
I'm kind of
ECMU.
convinced that Paul Manafort might be like a vampire. Like, he's got a little bit of like a Dracula-esque look to him. And like, I don't know, like, and I just have like that one picture of like that him in that like creepy, like, it's like a mob like suit, and he's just like looking like he just drank someone's blood. I'm sure whatever like freezer of blood that like Vlad like gives him access to.
Peter Thiel. Peter
Uh,
Thiel's the
That
one
is
with the
Peter
freezer
Thiel right
of
there.
blood.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think they're all in cahoots. You never know.
Yeah, pretty much actually.
Good times. So in other news, this week, over the last couple weeks, it's come out that there's another gigantic Internet of Things botnet being built. This one is named Reaper. And Reaper is based on the same one that went around, last year, and
It's also
for
a
the
great
last year.
Sia song. Just like gonna throw that out there.
And a good piece of software too, for audio there. But it's based on Mirai, which was used for the last round of these things, and it's got a couple really large differences. One, it's
Big
got a
improvements.
Lua scripting environment,
I think,
so you can
if you
send
want to just like
scripts
back up just a little bit and explain to the audience, like how you explained it to me earlier, what Internet of Things means.
So for the people out there that still don't know this one, the
Or
Internet of
forgotten.
Things is basically any device that isn't, a full-blown computer. You could consider your phone, your tablet, your computer, not Internet of Things. But let's say you've got a Wi-Fi enabled camera, a baby monitor that you can listen to on your phone when you're away. All these types of things are called Internet of Things because they're little devices that connect up to the internet. And, there are some microwaves now. There are even some televisions and some refrigerators that are in the Internet of Things. And the Internet of Things has a real issue with security. A lot of the cameras are really cheap knockoffs out of China that have default passwords that can't be changed. And so all these little devices are connected to the internet so they can be used on the internet. And
or even if they can be changed, who bothers?
Yeah,
they
who
come
even
in
knows
with
how,
the default and no one even ever logs in. Like your average end user is probably doesn't even know that you can do that.
I definitely don't.
So what happens is these people have written bots, this software that actually will just take over your device and use your device for denial of service attacks, for other attacks on the internet, which require lots of bandwidth and lots of devices doing the work at once. And so little over a year ago, one came out that was named Mirai. And this one was not unique in terms of, bots, because it used one of the relatively standard techniques of just knowing default passwords to things. But it was really the first one that was so easy to spread because it ran on so many different IoT devices. And it, most bots are written to infect Windows machines, this or Android phones. The fact that this hit any IoT device, and the manufacturers, there were hundreds that Mirai hit.
It was literally, I think, any device that used a particular Linux package that was in basically every IoT device.
Yep. And so it was able to spread to just first hundreds of thousands, then millions of devices, and it was used in a few attacks.
And several subsequent other botnets were also based on Mirai.
Because the source code leaked on a Russian forum originally, and then someone took it from there and uploaded it to GitHub because they thought that would be hilarious.
Let me guess, some white dude.
Some white dude who lives in America.
Oh, this is gonna be so funny. It's so. I hope his microwave exploded because of it.
I mean, has it?
I'm just gonna say I hope he's probably making a burrito and and his microwave
seems
explodes.
like something he would do.
Yes,
Whoever that guy
he
is.
eats
What a jerk.
burritos. Anyways, so it got out there and a lot more people decided to start using it.
And in fact, they kind of undermined the effectiveness of the original because they were using all these other ones that were based on it. And as a result, they were all just competing with each other for the same devices.
And
sounds like a white thing, like a white person problem.
The best thing that happened at that point was Brickerbot.
Yes.
Someone going by the name The Janitor is quoted as saying, "Like so many others, I was dismayed by the indiscriminate DDoS attacks by Internet of Things botnets in 2016. I thought for sure that the large attacks would force the industry to finally get its act together. But after a few months of record-breaking attacks, it became obvious that in spite of all the sincere efforts, the problem couldn't be solved quickly enough by conventional means." And he says, "I consider my project a form of internet chemotherapy." And basically what he wrote was a version of this bot that would get into all of these IoT devices, the same IoT devices that Mirai was attacking, and it would attempt to brick these devices, which means just lock them up, make them unusable, make it where you basically had to
Lock
throw
them
the
up
thing
and
away.
throw away the key.
And to the point that even factory resets wouldn't do anything.
Yeah, he really tried to just turn these things off for good.
Which makes me question how well this person knows or understands what chemotherapy does. Because It's actually used to like cure some cancers, not like shut them down and like.
Yeah, but
the Internet of Things is the body.
Yeah.
Getting rid
you
of the
want to kill the
infected
cells.
ones.
So the Internet of Things, all those devices are the cells.
That is indeed how chemotherapy works.
So I mean,
He's
it's
correct.
perfect.
But if you're like,
It is a good
There's
analogy,
millions of these
actually.
devices. Count them as cancer cells, and you've got to kill
no, but
them
a
all.
cancer,
So he
like
killed
the
them
thing,
all.
Well, yeah. Well, if he thinks that
He's only
products,
killing the cancer cells,
He tried.
the ones that are the problem here.
However,
from
he
his
did not kill
perspective.
them all.
No, he did not.
Just like the original Mirai, Brickerbot got, into all the filter lists and all the other places that, attempt to stop it from spreading. Now someone has come out with a new variant of Mirai, this one Reaper, and it's spreading to these same type of devices. It's got a slightly smaller list than the original Mirai did of devices it will attack.
And it's also a lot less aggressive currently. But part of that seems to
Scanning
be
slower.
Yeah, it seems to be a lot of it is to reduce its signature so that it's harder to detect.
Yeah, so people don't know their device is acting weird because, their other downloads are going slow or something.
Or like a virus scanner notices weird behavior, or
Right.
Security researchers notice weird behavior.
One of the interesting things about this one is that Checkpoint has reported that 60% of the corporate networks that make up their threat cloud global network are infected, and that NetLab has observed the command server for this botnet, the place on the internet where all these bots connect up to and try and get their commands and report that they
it's
exist.
a bot army.
Yeah, the CNC is the command and control structure.
It's the general telling all the army what to do.
And on one of the ones that they
I'm
were
picturing
able,
like a bunch of little minions right now. Like
seems fair.
yeah, that's a good way to look at it. And so on the CNC server, there was a queue of 2 million devices waiting to be infected and processed because the CNC could only handle around 10,000 bots per day. So it would seem that either, and there are multiple of these CNCs, but nowhere near enough to handle the backlog of devices it's discovering. It would seem that either this person didn't realize it would find that many devices, or this got out a little early and his infrastructure wasn't in place yet.
Yeah, and I mean it's seems that it's still in development. Currently, it's using a bunch of dumb things that no one running a serious botnet would ever do, like having fixed domain and IPs for your command and control rather than rotating through, so that internet service providers can't
the
just
fast
ban
flux
you.
domain stuff and all that.
But it also is active. It hasn't been used for any attacks yet, so it's obviously still being worked on.
Anyone like make sure like I don't know, like put a hint into like Vlad's ear to like have these bots attack like I don't know, like Trump's Twitter account? Is that like a possibility thing?
I mean, Twitter has an API.
I mean, like just specifically
But
his
so
Twitter
that's
account.
one to kind of pay attention to, because if this person actually gets his CNC in order, he's going to have a botnet capable of taking down some really large sites.
The technical improvements over Mirai and some of the differences that it exploits are very significant improvements.
What the thing is like, and this is what kind of like that like drives me crazy, but like it's just one of those things where I'm like I don't understand. Is like we hear about these stories or we find out about these people are creating these type of things, or hackers and all these terrible things, and yet more and more information and things are becoming technological and going on the internet and becoming internet like run and controlled, and it's like
people who are purchasing these things don't care or understand about the security of the things they're purchasing. They don't.
It's like the
They
convenient
aren't
features.
technical enough, one, to even understand if the box described it, properly, what it actually means. So
we're
they're just
so
buying.
willing to do everything. Like
Yeah,
you
they're
know,
just
it's like,
buying
and-
devices. They have no idea what
it
it's
has
doing.
some cool new feature. They don't know how
and
to.
it's just like, and it becomes like I know like for a lot of things now, like it's becoming almost impossible to avoid like not being online, even if you don't
yeah.
have like a smartphone. You know what I mean? Because it's like everything has internet capabilities, like almost like your TV like goes online, and you don't even necessarily want an online TV. You just want a couple of channels.
No, especially not the models that have microphones that were reporting back to the government, when you were saying things, because they were able to infect them and get that microphone.
First of all, if anyone's listening to my conversation in front of a TV,
It's just you talking to your dog. Right.
Or it's me yelling at the Dateline episode I'm watching. Like, I'm watching a lot of terrible TV. So, like,
just imagine how miserable the agent assigned to review your conversations
now
must
I
be.
know why I'm banned from Facebook all the time. It's
No more! I took over to ban her.
now it's
Nice.
making more sense.
Nice.
But yeah, no, it's just so it's mind-boggling that we are like, we as the Royal Society, like the Royal we don't care.
We're doing this without even a second thought, without even a first thought.
Yeah.
Some of us care, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Some of
but,
us.
but like,
but I mean, it's an unbelievably small percentage.
and like the ones that care who like normally understand it, because it is a very kind of like complicated thing to kind of understand for a lot of people, especially if like someone's like has a stressful life. It's hard to understand, and then it becomes overwhelming once you understand it, because now you're thinking, like, what can I do? I can't do anything. I can't prevent it. I can't stop it. Like, or I'm just gonna be somewhere in an area where there's public Wi-Fi, and then this attack's gonna happen, and then the world's gonna shut down, and I'm, like, it can become overwhelming. But it's just like, what are we doing? Like, why is this still happening? Why are we letting it happen? I don't
To
get
my
it.
mind, that's a very similar question to. So for a long time, we were very concerned about the idea that the government might try and spy on us and collect all this information about us. And now everyone just posts it to Facebook. They don't even need to do any of the work. I mean, sure, they have a backdoor in so they can get all of it easily and do whatever they want in terms of like compiling it.
There
But
have been multiple busts of websites where people were using this IoT stuff to infect baby monitor cameras and then selling access to people who wanted to watch random people's babies and talk to them at night through the monitor. And there have been people busted for actually doing this.
yeah,
That's some
yeah,
freaking,
right?
like, that's
Outright nightmare
that is a
fuel.
horror movie.
People just go to the store and they buy whatever off-brand baby monitor they want that has a camera that they can view on their phone and a speaker so they can talk to their baby, and then put it in, not realizing that thing's connecting up to the internet. That's how you're using
Privacy.
it.
It'll be years before people get privacy and how important it is.
At this point, I kind of think we're like a century away from people rediscovering the idea of privacy.
Yeah, I agree. It's a
Like-
long time. It's a long time.
Well, because we're so complicit. We're so complicit, and we're so willing to be complicit too. Like you said with like Facebook and social media. Like, I mean, how many stories?
Even when Facebook doesn't even want you. Like, they're actively trying to get you to
know.
stop.
Yeah,
I
they
know.
keep
Like,
kicking you
you're
off,
the
and
one that
you
they're like, could we
personally
just-
show back up.
I know, and it's just men. It's just men that hate me. I don't understand why. It's just a weird thing. Oh,
You know I
man.
love you, baby.
It's only because I want to, like, I don't know, dismantle the patriarchy and like murder all men. But like, I don't understand why they don't like that. Like, it's just a weird thing. that-
I know, like,
It's
you
like
don't
a weird.
get it.
It's like
Yeah.
a weird male thing.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, I don't know what's wrong with you people. But yeah, no, it's like
I was
we
about
like,
to say that I like breathing, but like I actually don't. It's like
people,
annoying.
but people tag
agree.
where,
I'd
but
I'd like
like.
to be alive, just I
Yeah.
don't want to have to,
But like people are tagging where they are on Facebook and social media and like Snapchat and like and Instagram, now that Instagram has that live feature, and like the Facebook Live, like people are Facebook live streaming their robberies.
This is
Yeah.
multiple people have been arrested for doing that.
Yeah, so it's like we're so complicit in putting everything online and having our worlds be public, and we don't even understand how much information we are giving away with that. Like,
Oh yeah, and people have even people that are tech savvy barely have any idea often.
yeah,
Like even the slight, like there's
see what
so much more than anyone thinks.
Password lists get cracked and stuff, and like system admins, people in charge of information security at consulting firms and stuff, or even have like password, just some weird stuff in their password. People just don't take the time to actually make sure it's locked down. It's
When you
just
look at
stupid.
things like the list of most common passwords, and you do literally see at the top of that list passwords like password and 1 2 3 4 5 6.
that's still
Man.
like the most common password.
It's unbelievable, yeah.
And I mean, beyond that, the amount of data that is available about all of us. There was a study a few years ago. It was regards to HIPAA protected information
Yeah.
at hospitals, where they actually did an analysis to try and figure out how many pieces of data about someone they needed in order to be able to actually identify specifically who it was from their medical information. And it was a shockingly small number
Okay,
of
well,
pieces of data, just
I-
like barely.
As someone who reads medical records for part of her job, you would be surprised how poor those records are put together.
Yeah, no, but I
And,
mean,
like,
we're talking no, but I'm saying like one piece of like 3 pieces of information, and you had narrowed it down to like 10 people.
oh yeah, no, like
It was ridiculous. Like, and
Yeah.
these aren't even like, this is just knowing like when someone, like the date of someone's visit, their age, like like little stuff. It's not even major details. It's not their social security number or anything. No, these are just a few basic pieces of information. And if you have a large enough data set, you can specifically identify that person and then use that to find out everything about them, like having access to their Facebook backend.
And all you need is a date of birth with medical records.
Oh yeah,
and you don't even need the full one. You just need you need maybe a month in the year, and not even like the right year or the right month, and you can find everything with just a date of birth. And it's just, I don't know. It's just one of these things where I constantly think about it, and like I try to conserve how much I do online and how much I give online. I try not to do a lot of online purchases because I don't do online banking because it's like I need to prevent one thing of my life from not trying to get attacked, even though I know there's no real protection from any of it.
Right. Well, right now there are some IoT groups and some bigger companies trying to come up with plans to secure these. There are people who are putting little secondary IoT devices that you can first plug these devices into and then have it plug into the internet, and they try and filter out as much of this as possible for your older devices. I mean, there's tons of people trying to come at this problem, but the bigger part of the problem is that when you go to purchase the device, no one seems to be looking at the box to see if it's secure or even says it's secure. They don't care. That one's $20 cheaper than that one. Yeah, and even if it explained it, they wouldn't understand it because
it would be meaningless.
It's tech speak.
Yeah.
That's why, every time I have you explain something to me, it takes kind of a while because
you want an ELI 5.
I don't even know what that means.
Explain like I'm 5.
Well, no, because you say things so to you it's commonplace,
right? And so I'm very confident when I say it too. I just speak right through it.
And the problem is when you're comfortable with something because you know it, you forget that sometimes the smallest thing that is minute for you is the most complicated part of it.
Right.
And it's like that in anyone's job too. Like even when I was working in doing buying for a grocery store, which was pretty straightforward. If there's not enough on the shelf, order it. I remember one time I had a boss tell me, you're going to have to explain and show someone how to break down a cardboard box. It's going to happen because someone's not going to know, and you're going to think it's the most obvious thing to them.
Right.
And so it's for these type of things, it's no one knows what to look for a secure on the box. I wouldn't.
Or anyone could put secure on their box packaging, and that's such a vague term that it wouldn't have any real legal meaning unless you were very specific about what kind of security you were talking or what it was secure against.
And sometimes people don't even know how many things that they're purchasing are actually because of the Wi-Fi connection.
Yeah.
So points of action on this one are pretty simple. Obviously, don't put an IoT device on the internet connected to anything you care about unless you have to. And if you have to, let's say you put IoT devices up at home.
Do your research into the products first.
Obviously, but also if you don't know internet security yourself, if you don't feel comfortable with terms like setting up a firewall on your router or getting a hardware firewall between you and the internet, if you don't know these things, you can get them for cheap. A good sonic wall is $200. I mean, it's not an expensive thing to buy you some protection.
I don't know, you could try to maybe talk to someone who maybe knows
right,
more
but what
these
I'm saying
things.
is at that price, you can get that and then hire someone for an hour's worth of their time to come out and set it up at your house real quick. And there are 100 companies that will do that level of consulting. I mean, here in the Boston area, there's Geek House Calls, there's Geek Squad, Geek Choice. There's 100 of these things, and they will all just come to your house and set one of those up for you quickly. And just having that will prevent 90% of this stuff.
Gregg, do you think is that something that we can get, at least in the near future, some sort of blog post up that maybe the most common ones that we get that people submit or ask about, and we can just put it up on social media so they have a link to the blog post and all that and kind of go
Absolutely.
through? That way they know it's a secure spot, and just it kind of answers the questions that I'm embarrassed to ask some too. So it's simpler questions.
I mean,
that
a very simple.
I'm never embarrassed. I don't know what the fuck people are talking about.
If you don't want to take the time, or it's really not a thing that you think you're going to get, then there are some quick and kind of easy, relatively inexpensive things you can do to add a level of security that will prevent a lot of the automated attacks that are out there, which is 99% of all attacks. They're not going to prevent a dedicated Russian hacker paid by the government who's after you. But at that point, you weren't ever preventing that in the first place.
Unless you were the hacker that is better than that guy, you weren't stopping that.
Yeah.
Or
So,
if you're Donald Trump, like
well, yeah, because his prevention was just to say, hey, what do you want? Like, let's talk. Like,
Yeah.
come over here. You don't need the hacker.
do you want to use my bathroom?
on your side.
My personal penthouse? Oh, sure, I can show you. It's right over here.
Yeah, my pin for everything is, so anyways,
It's just his
we'll
name.
get something out there on the call to action on this week, and we'll send it out on our social media so everyone can kind of see the easiest way to do at least a little bit of protection against this. The obvious one is just try not to put IoT devices on your home network if you don't have to. Although going forward, that's going to get harder and harder.
Now there are Wi-Fi enabled light bulbs and your smart thermostat and all these things like that are little home things that you'd never even think of that connect to the internet.
So I think that's episode 31 there, unless
so.
unless we're
We ended on a positive note.
everyone's shaking their heads.
It's 2 weeks in a row, so I think this should be a new trend. We try to end positively.
Yeah, we're gonna provide some value at the end there if
like
you
if
made
you-
it that far.
Exactly.
Third
I
time's
like
a
it.
charm, and there's a fist fight, and some chairs get thrown. Shit gets wild. Who knows?
I like it. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to the whole episode. Make sure to listen to the wonderful pitch about our social media, and please, if you have $1 to spare, give it to us on Patreon. We need it. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GreggHoush Show and on Instagram at GreggHoush. If you like what you've heard and want to be a part of it, check out patreon.com/GreggHoush Show. In exchange for funding our programming, you gain access to exclusive content such as uncut editions of our podcast. We have new episodes every Thursday night. We hope you listen in. The GreggHoush Show was created by GreggHoush, executive produced by co-host Eric Gaures, and co-hosted by Kayla Avery. Other contributors include producer and writer Anna Jeffrey, co-host producer David McGuffin, and writer-engineer Robert Tortora. Theme music for this show was produced and recorded by Geneva de Colbert. Our interns include co-host Casey McLaughlin, writer-engineer Alec Greeny, writer Maddie Locicero, and associate producer, writer, and announcer William Kennedy. You're listening to New Revolutionary Radio, your call to action.